And everybody can see that. Okay, and last thing. Noreen, you are now the host.
That's me.
Okay.
Got it. Thanks, Mike.
All right, everybody, good evening.
So I booked a flight for my wife and an autofill.
Phil, I can hear you, buddy. There you go. Okay.
I got it.
All right. Evening, everybody. Thank you for joining in tonight. Very excited to talk to many of you. What we're going to do, Noreen and I are going to go through the qualification procedures for Paris 2024. We'll keep everybody muted during the presentation. I'll kind of take you through step by step the document with a few add-ons for things that I have come to, been explained or understand a little bit better. And then at the end, we'll unmute folks and we'll take time for some questions, and hopefully we can answer all your questions. And if we can't, I'll make a note and I'll make sure I get back to you on whatever that would be. So again, I'm Mike Gattone. I'm Senior Director of Sports Performance. Lorraine, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, I'm Lorraine Halford. I am the National Teams Director.
Right. All right. So this is the recently approved qualification procedures written by the International Weightlifting Federation and approved by the International Olympic Committee. So pretty much will stand now as it is. I'm going to take you through step by step again, and we'll start off just here by talking about the events. Most of you probably know at the Olympic Games in Paris, there will only be 5 men's categories and 5 women's categories. The 5 men categories are 61, 73, 89, 102, and plus 102. The women's categories are 49, 59, 71, 81, and plus 81. Now, we're going to talk about this a little bit more later on in the document, but caveat for now, by thinking of lower weight category rolls into the higher weight category. So in other words, 61 kilo is the only the first men's weight category, but an athlete that weighs less than that, so a 55 kilo athlete, could theoretically qualify and compete in the 61s. So the 89 kilo men are basically every athlete that's 73.01 through 89.00. Women's 71s are every athlete from 59.01 to 71.00. So there's no more 64s, for example. If you're over 59, you're rolled into the 71s. There will be 120 athletes lifting in Paris. No more than that. It's a very small number. And the quotas, the athletes are going to be selected or invited in the following breakdown. 100 athletes, that's 10 in each of the bodyweight categories above, will qualify and be invited. So that equals 100 athletes. 5 more in the categories above, 5 men, 5 women, will be selected. So that makes 110. France gets 4 athletes straight up, 2 and 2. So that's 114. And then there's what's called universality places, which we won't talk a lot about in this talk. It's really more involved in making sure there's massive, greater participation across the globe of nations that don't have the opportunity to qualify in the, in the categories or in the ways above. Important to note that the maximum number of athletes that any National Olympic Committee can get is 6, 3 men, 3 women. That's maximum. Even though there's 5 bodyweight categories, we can only send 3 men and 3 women. Okay, we're going to talk more about that later. So maximum per category would be 12 athletes. So for the 5 men's categories, 5 women's categories, 12 athletes with 1 per National Olympic Committee. We won't talk too much about the allocation places, allocation of quota places right now. We're going to go through that a little bit more. It is interesting though to note here, like, I guess it is important to go through this. So just like in Tokyo, quotas are assigned by name. So the athlete themselves wins their quota. It's not the National Olympic Committee like in years past. So the National Olympic Committee quotas go for each nation go directly to the athletes according to these qualifying procedures. And just a reminder here, no, if a National Olympic Committee has more than 3 athletes in one gender who are eligible, basically 2 are going to get left home, this says. So the National Olympic Committee and the National Federation beneath that, USA Weightlifting, will have to come up and publish a qualifying procedure in addition to this on how we will select our 3 athletes, men, 3 athletes, women, and we will speak directly in that document to how we'll select 3 from the possible 5. Okay, athlete eligibility. Basically what this says is that you're going to, as an athlete, you're going to have to be compliant with the Olympic Charter. You know, basically think of this next part as, you know, back in the day, somebody used to be able to show up at Olympic trials and maybe, you know, lift enough weight to be selected for an Olympic team. That hasn't been the case in a while, but this basically talks about that even more deeply. You have to be an athlete that's involved in USA Weightlifting national team selection basically already, so that we can make sure you are in lockstep with the proper anti-doping code, for example, to be eligible for the Olympic Games. There are age requirements. To participate in the games, you must be born on or before 31st of December 2019. So you have to be at least 13 years old, I believe that makes, to compete in the Olympic Games.
I know.
All right. To be eligible, an athlete has to participate. So this is where it starts getting really interesting. To participate in the Olympic Games, there are 2 compulsory events. If you want to make the Paris team, or one of your athletes wants to make the Paris team, they must qualify and participate in the 2023 World Championships, Senior World Championships, and they must qualify and participate in a World Cup event in the second quarter of 2024. Think of that as the final event for all the Olympians to get together, be tested, etc. All right. So again, that's compulsory participation. They do give a little footnote beneath that to kind of explain the fact that in extreme, exceptional circumstances, there's a war in your country, there's a horrible, natural disaster, you've got a broken leg, a horrible disease, you can't get on a plane, there will be a third-party group that will decide if somebody will be able to still be eligible and not be in the compulsory events. In addition to the compulsory events, there are 5 events additional, but at which athletes will qualify for the Olympic Games. So essentially, these 7 events that I'm talking about here, the 2 compulsory ones, 2023 Senior Worlds and 2024 World Cup, plus these next 5, the 2022 World Championships, in 2023, either, it won't be both, it'll be either the Pan Am Senior Championships or the Pan Am Games. More likely it'll be the Pan Am Games, but that hasn't been officially announced yet. 2 World Cups, one in Q2, Q4, and one in Q3, Q4, and then the 2024 Pan Am Championship. So there's 7 events for athletes to qualify for the Olympic Games. Okay, if you're at the level where you're fighting to go to these events, you know, you are likely can be in the running to go to the Olympic Games. It's just important to think about that as a coach or an athlete that may be on this call. There's not an Olympic trials in a year and a half that you're training for. Sadly, you must be putting up total in these 7 events. So of these 7 events, first 2 compulsory, and then from this next 5 titled the additional events here, you must compete in at least 3. Okay. Then they just talk about how the host country has to participate in the compulsory events as above, and then the universality places as well have to participate in those competitions. It's important to discuss here what participation means. It doesn't necessarily mean you must lift in one of these competitions, but you must attend, weigh in, and go to the introduction of athletes to tick off the box saying you participated. Still, for purposes of USA weightlifting, that means you're going to be selected for our team based on our qualification procedure. So in other words, you can't just show up and say, I'm here to participate. But in the case where a Team USA athlete maybe is in a good place already with qualifying numbers and we want to send them to one of these events to just participate, they can do this. So they would tick off that they were there. They don't necessarily have to do a snatch and clean and jerk. Okay. Important to discuss letter E here. In order to assist in anti-doping efforts, this was a reminder to us that anybody to be eligible for participation in these above events has to be in the whereabouts of IWF at least 3 months if it's a senior or junior world championships, say a world championship, youth, junior, or senior, and 2 months for any other events on here before the event. That's why when you look at USA weightlifting qualification procedures, we close a window for, say, the world championships 3 months out, or say a World Cup 2 months out, because we will then give the names of our qualified athletes to WADA so that they're in the whereabouts, they are participating in the whereabouts procedures. Okay. And then just another reminder that every athlete has to complete this e-learning course. Right now, our athletes, for example, going to the Junior Worlds have to do this. It's the WADA Adele platform. Should any of your athletes or any athletes on this call find yourself in the situation where you're going to one of these events for Team USA, we'll make sure you are participating in the WADA Adele platform. The next section is extremely sensitive to me and to Lorene and to Phil and to others on this call, and just really important for me to review right now. It's about the ramifications of doping positives for a nation in regards to the entire Olympic movement. If you read letter A, it says, during the period of 23 July 2021, so that is already started, to 25 July 2024, any member federation, so USA weightlifting, British weightlifting, Armenian weightlifting, those are member federations. If any of them are found to have breached an obligation under the IWF ADR, and including but without limitation to fail to comply with, any anti-doping things, such as having your Adele education done or filing your whereabouts, you basically, it says here that an independent panel may withdraw some or all of your quota places from that nation, okay, with regard to Paris and maybe even the next ensuing Olympic Games. Then it gets a little more serious. It says, should 3 or more anti-doping rule violations sanctioned by the IWF or anti-doping organizations other than the member federation. So during that window, if somebody tests positive in a USADA test, okay. But if a US athlete, for example, tests positive at an international event during that window that I mentioned, then it says there's an independent panel that may withdraw some or all the quota places from that member federation with regards to Paris. And again, the next ensuing Olympic Games. And then it goes on to say, in the cases where 3 or more violations involve periods of ineligibility. So if they found 3 or more people and they say, hey, you now have a period of 2 years or 4 years, you got no quotas left, you're out. So 3 athletes theoretically competing in an international event for US, even at the youth level that got us into this situation, could have all quotas for our Olympic team withdrawn. So very, very important if your athletes are competing anywhere, but particularly for a Team USA event, if they are putting a supplement in their body or a medication, make sure you check that medication through WADA. And if they're taking any supplement, it should definitely be NSF certified. Okay, now let's talk about this qualification pathway. This is where I started to touch on this a little bit, but kind of the rubber hits the road on how any of your athletes or any of you athletes on this call would qualify for the Olympic Games. So beginning after the 2022 Senior World Championships, the IWF will start publishing something called the OQR, Olympic Qualifying Rankings. And that OQR will include 1 athlete per those 5 Olympic bodyweight categories, men and women, okay? And one per National Olympic Committee. And they're going to be ranked straight up by total. No more Roby points, no more gold, silver, bronze. Whatever you lift, that's what goes into the Olympic qualifying ranking. Now, those Olympic qualifying rankings are going to be formulated from official results from only the following 7 events. Again, 2022 Worlds, 2023 either Senior Pan Am Championships or Senior Pan Am Games, 2023 IWF World Cup or Grand Prix 1, 2023 IWF Grand Prix 2, 2023 Senior Worlds, 2024 Senior Continental, so Senior Pan Ams, and then that 2024 World Cup. So essentially, to make the Olympic team for the United States of America, you need to lift in these 2 mandatory events and at least 3 others from this list of 7. Okay. They're going to be a specific place on the IWF website where they will list that Olympic qualifying ranking, and it'll be updated whenever one of these events happen. I assume maybe it'll be updated in regards to doping, between events, possibly, should there be any issue with the nation, possibly, or that could happen at the end. I'm not 100% sure about that. Important to speak again here about now results for non-Olympic bodyweight categories. So this is really interesting. If you go to the World Championships, for example, as a 96 kilo man, your result, should it be good enough, would put you into the Olympic qualification ranking as a 102, because a 102 is the Olympic category. So if you look down here, they explain that a little bit more specifically. Just for example, a guy goes to the Worlds for us and lifts as a 67 kilo lifter. His results would be collated, would be compared to others in the OQR as a 73. So if his 67 kilo total made him the number 173 from our National Olympic Committee, boom, he goes into the OQR and the 73 kilos for United States of America. Okay, so same thing for women. If a 45 kilo woman at our World Championships does a total that would make her number 149, or, beat our 249s, an additional, and help her have her rank in the top 10 in the OQR, she goes in. Okay, so a 76-kilo woman that goes to the Pan Am Championships to represent Team USA, her results could go into the OQR as an 81, should she lift enough. Next bullet point, important again, at maximum, 1 athlete per National Olympic Committee shall be ranked in the OQR. Coming into Tokyo, we had multiple athletes because they were ranked by Roby. In this, the way this reads, only 1 athlete should be ranked. So not only do you want to be top 10 in the world, you got to be number 1 in the US in your weight category as well, men or women, essentially. Okay. It says here, in the circumstance that 2 or more athletes record the same total in the same Olympic bodyweight category, they're going to be ranked on order in which they're achieved. So if somebody puts up a big total in the women's 59 in 2022 Worlds, that could essentially stand through the whole qualifying period. However, it's not like they can run and hide. They must still participate and will very likely be tested. They're going to have to participate in at least the 2 more compulsory events plus 2 more of the 5, but potentially a total from the 2022 Worlds could hold up for somebody. See if there's anything else that I missed on that area. Nope. Okay. Okay. Says following the end of the qualification period, the highest Olympic qualifying ranking, ranked 10 athletes in each event for the Olympic Games will be allocated a quota place. If an athlete is ranked in the top 10 in more than 1 event in the OQR. So again, example, a woman, a female 59-kilo lifter that had a massive enough total as a 59 that it also ranked her as a 71, for example. That means because it must be Olympic categories. This says that their National Olympic Committee, in consultation with USA Weightlifting, or again, Mexican Weightlifting Federation, is going to have to tell the IWF by the 10th of May, 2024, in which athlete which event, they're going to compete. And then they'll be dropped out of the other category and an athlete below will be moved up. So you can see there's going to be some moving pieces here a little bit right up until an end date. And I'll review the end dates with you guys here at the end of the document. And then again, this is that part I kind of mentioned a little bit, which will be, something that we will work very hard to make sure we have very objective, fair, and published procedures on. In fact, our Olympic qualification procedures, selection procedures, have to be approved by the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee. And believe me, lawyers are involved in that. It's not an easy process. But the next bullet point says, should a National Olympic Committee record more than 3 athletes per gender from different body weight categories, then they have to declare by the 22nd of May, 2024, which of these 3 athletes are going to take the quotas and which are going to stay home. And then again, there'll be a reshuffling in categories based on withdrawals from nations. Okay. And then the qualification period begins on 1st of August, 2022, which is kind of bizarre because the World Championships in November are the first qualifying event. But in any case, the window opens 1st August, 2022, and it closes 28 April with that Q2 World Cup event. Of real interest to many Team USA athletes and frankly athletes around the world is the next pathway of selection or qualification, which is Continental Representation. So similar to Tokyo, there is a way to qualify without being in Tokyo. It was top 8 Roby, and here it's top 10 OQRs. But it says here basically in a nutshell that if a federation does not have an athlete that recorded a total high enough to be in that 1 per National Olympic Committee top 10 OQR, but that athlete is the number 1 from that federation, whatever their continental federation is, they're going to win an additional slot. So to explain a little bit more, let's take the men's plus 102. Okay. I looked today and it's probably going to take about 420 kilos to be in the top 10. If our top super heavyweight or the Cuban top super heavyweight or the Mexican top super heavyweight does a 405, and that doesn't get them into that top 10, okay? So that would mean there's no Pan Am athlete in that top 10. Then that number 1 plus 102 from the federation that isn't already in the top 10, or their federation doesn't already have one in the top 10, gets one of these 10 additional Olympic qualification slots. Next is just about host country places where none of us live in France. I don't think they're on this call, so I'm not going to dig into that. And then universality places. I mean, basically, again, think about universality places as ways to help smaller nations or nations that, may not have any athletes good enough to qualify in any other way. The universality places are more of a pathway for them. Okay, quickly, just to run through these dates a little bit, and then we'll open up for questions. So it says here, the IWF will publish final qualification ranking list by May 24th of 2024. And the IWF will confirm in writing to the National Olympic Committees by that same date the quota places they have obtained. And then the National Olympic Committees will basically have a week. So we'll have till May 31st of 2024 to tell them if we want to use our quota places, to decide which 3 we're using, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. I think I'm going to open it up for questions now. I'll hit stop share. And if we have to go back to the document, I will. But if you guys want to use your hand raise function, if you're comfortable asking a question in this type of group, if you're not, please email me, message me, or Lorene, or Phil, feel free to do that, and we'll definitely get back to you. But is this pretty understandable to everybody on the call? And if there's any questions, go ahead and use your little hand raise function, and we'll take them. Nothing. Lorene, do you have anything to add in, or Phil, do you have anything to add in?
I'm good, Mike. I think you covered sort of the basis that we've been trying to cover with these. So I think I'm good.
Yeah. All right.
I'm good, Mike.
Cool.
I learned a thing or two from you.
Thanks, Phil. I definitely stumped. I think the big question mark for us is 2023 Pan Am Championships versus Pan Am Games. I have been told more likely the event will be Pan Am Games, and that's some kind of a reciprocity to get the guys who run the Pan Am Games that are on the IOC, that are in the IOC to vote to keep weightlifting in the Paris Olympics. It is a little bit of a crappy situation, honestly, because a full team at the Pan Am Games is not 10 and 10, but, we're talking, frankly, a thin slice of athletes as it is. So, should it be the Pan Am Games and you don't make the Pan Am Games, you still have 4 other events of which to get 3. So.
For the Pan Am Games, would the qualification be the exact same thing as the Olympics? Where if you're competing in 55, you'd use the total as if like you can compete at 61?
Yeah,
would it-
well, go ahead there. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry. Go ahead, bud. Keep going. I
No,
cut
that-
you off.
No, that's it. That's it.
No, it's a great question. And I'm gonna be honest with you. We're still formulating the Pan Am Games procedures, and we need to get them out soon, frankly. The issue was, these are pretty new to us as well. Now, in the past, we have tried to stay pretty close to what the Olympic qualification procedures are. And I think, Darren, at least in the case of, call it the 7 qualifying events, we'll try to mimic the Olympic qualifying procedures as close as possible with an eye on, not hurting any of our athletes, but, we want to frankly make sure the folks that are most likely to qualify for the games, are also able to qualify for these 7 events leading up to them. So could be a situation where we have different qualifying procedures, like stick with what we have, with NRS on senior events and senior events that aren't Olympic qualifying, and of course, youth and junior events. But we're sort of working through that frantically right now. But really good question, Darren. I hope I answered it. I know I was a bit obtuse, but
No, that's fine. Would there be a chance of that both of the events will be held in the same year again? Because I do recall it happening this past cycle where the Pan Ams and the Pan Am Games was in the same year.
yeah, I think it will be for sure. They'll have them both, but only one will be the qualifying. So, if they stick with the games being the qualifying, then, if we go, I would see that the championships may have a more diverse and open group of athletes, right? Because some of the folks who are maybe in the deep running for the Olympic Games may say, I'm not going to go to an international event if it's not needed for me to qualify for the Olympics, for example. I believe they will have both. You're right. They had that in 2019, and Lorene, Phil, if you think otherwise or heard otherwise, correct me, but I think they'll do both, but only one will count for Olympic qualifying.
That's my understanding. One or the other, not both, but most
One or
likely
the
both will exist.
Yep. Cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then last question, because I recall historically, if we are asking these questions, if this call is for that, but I recall historically that the Pan Ams had a complete different qualification than the Olympics. Like there were 2 different qualification procedures. Is that going to be the same?
You mean the Pan Am Games or the Pan Am Championship? Sorry, I think you mean the games, right? Or
I believe both, or I don't know.
Okay.
Like the qualification totals were different.
the thing we're discussing right now, and I think it's fair, we're trying to be, we're on a thin slice of high performance, but also be, equitable to the widest selection or widest swath of athletes. So I think, Darren, what we're thinking right now is, let's say we found out in 23, when we'll find out soon, that the championships is a qualifier and the games is not, then potentially, right, we could have 2 different sets of numbers or qualification procedures. Our intention right now is, if an event's a qualifying for the Olympic Games, we would have procedures which are pretty closely in line to what we just reviewed, just to make sure that the folks who have the biggest chance to be in that top 10 and to be our number 1 in the nation are the ones, getting on those teams. But should we find out the 23 Pan Am Championships, for example, are not, my guess is we'd stay with current NRS with just maybe a change in whatever the qualification numbers are as written in our selection procedures now, because we base it on preceding years. So
Thank
yeah,
you.
there could be 2 different procedures for sure on those, but I would expect if you just refer back to that list of 7 competitions, we intend to try to line up qualification for that pretty closely to how folks qualify for the Olympic Games. Because I mean, the worst thing that could happen is somebody who's in the running, let's say after 2 events, and they need to get 1 more plus the 2 compulsories, and I don't know, somehow they get dropped out of the qualification procedures. You know, we want to make sure we keep the qualification procedures for those 7 events sort of in line with situations that could happen for that group of athletes. So keep your eyes open for those. We need to get on them. So good questions. Anything else anybody has? Okay. Please feel free to reach out. You can email or DM me if you could text me on my cell phone, even if you want to have a discussion more, or you know, would like to review these again or something, be more than happy to. So yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. Hope everybody has a great night. Appreciate you all attending. And Lorraine, you got to give me back host duties and I can stop the recording. So
Yeah,
thank
hold
you,
on 1
everybody.
second.
Best of luck and thank you for attending.
You should have it now, Mike.
All right, thank you. Stop recording.